Hey, what's up guys? My name's James Dymond and welcome back to the next episode of How to Make Uplifting Trance here on Sonic Academy. In the last episode we looked at the setup of the project and just talking about a little bit on the mixdown kind of process using those software versions of the analog kind of counterpart. In this episode we're going to be jumping into starting to create the track and we're going to be looking at the kick drum. So rather than traditionally using a kind of sample for the kick, we are going to be using the Sonic Academy plugin called Kick 2. This is the next version from the original Kick plugin, and this is absolutely fantastic. A lot of great updates to it as well. So first of all, before we get into that, I'm just going to change the BPM of the track to 138, as that's what we want to work in. And then let's have a look at what kind of kick drum we're going to be using. I'm going to click into the kind of box here where it says default. This is going to bring up the kind of presets menu. And I'm going to go to DLC and the Artist Presets Volume 1. You can grab this from the Sonic Academy website. And then I'm going to choose into the male levy kicks. You might be thinking that's a bit strange as we're doing kind of like an uplifting trance, side trance style. You might think the Sean Tyas kicks would be better, but I found a really, really nice male levy kick in here, and it's simply the male 1. So if I just add into my kick, and let's just have a quick listen to that. So it's a really nice kick, kind of full-bodied in the low end, and a nice attack to it. I'm going to leave it as this, as in I want to further process it. And the great thing about Kick 2 is rather than kind of using the plugin to play the sample within the project, we've got this new section here called Render. So we click onto there, and then we can hit this Generate button, and it actually generates a sample of the kick that we've got here that's been created. Now all we need to do to bring it into the project is just click and drag, and we drop it in. And as we can see here, we've got our kick. Quick rename and a colour. And then I'm just going to link that to my kick channel here. As you can see, I've already got some effects preloaded. Throughout the series, I'm pretty much going to have most of the effects preloaded onto the channels just to kind of avoid having to do the monotonous thing of adding each effect each time. But of course, I'll be going through and showing you exactly how I process them. They're all going to be kind of left as the default positions. So before I start adding any of the effects, I'm going to go into the sampler. I'm going to go into the instrument properties here, and we're going to be looking at the envelope. Now I want the kick to be really short and snappy. I want it to kind of have that short low end, but I want to keep some of the body of it. So let's just bring down the volume just a tad. And then I'm going to go to the fruity limiter and just bring that up a bit. So I want my kick to be around minus 14 or maybe minus 12 dB. I mix quite low because I like to make sure that nothing's clipping on the individual mixer channels, and also so nothing's clipping on the master channel. Of course the limiter is going to stop that, but I don't want to be pushing any of my sounds really through the limiter anyway. And of course when I turn off the limiter to render out the final track for mastering, it's going to be around minus 6 to minus 8 dB, which is perfect for mastering. So back to the instrument properties, I'm just going to play around with the attack, the hold, decay and sustain and release, and kind of shorten up the kick. So we've just got the sound of the attack now, so let's have a look and see what we can do to add in the body, the low end of the kick as well. I think about there sounds good. So as you can hear, we've cut off some of the kind of extra tail of the low end. The reason I'm doing that is because I want to make sure that the kick realistically only plays for 2/16 within the kind of within the single bar. So you've got your 16th notes here. I want it to make sure that the kick finishes on the second 16th, because the third 16th is when the sub bass is going to start playing, so the third and the fourth. So I want to make sure that the kick stops and gets out of the way to allow the sub bass to kind of come in and be able to, so you can hear it better, so it's not clashing with the kick drum. So the first thing I'm going to do is add some compression. So I'm going to be using the Vertigo VSC2 compressor. Again, as I explained at the start, this is a software version modeled on the hardware compressor. It's really, really nice. It's got a very smooth kind of compression setting, but you can also kind of push it quite a lot to really get some nice kind of bouncy sound out of it. So first of all, I'm going to go to my release and I'm going to set it at 0.1 seconds. This is to make sure that the compressor releases the compression before the next kick comes in. And then I'm probably going to have it around 3 milliseconds to 10 milliseconds. I'll play around with this attack to see what sounds best. And let's set the ratio to 4:1. I'm just going to then start pulling back on the threshold. And what I'm looking for is to kind of give a little bit more attack, high end onto, and a bit of snap to the kick. So just increasing the makeup gain there to give the volume equal amount compared to when the power was turned off. So as you can hear, that's adding a real nice kind of snap to the high end of the kick. I'm just going to play around with the attack here so I'll do some kind of extreme settings so you can hear what it's like. The more I pull it to the left, the less attack you hear of the kick, and the more I pull it to the right. So the slower the attack, the more of the attack of the kick you'll hear. So I think 3 milliseconds sounds pretty good. I think 10 milliseconds was just getting a bit of overkill. So that's sounding quite nice indeed. So next thing I want to do is add our EQ after the compressor. And I'm going to start by boosting around the low end, around 80 Hertz. This is the area which is going to be the kind of body, the low end of the kick. And then I'm going to make a small cut between 100 and 200. And this is going to remove some of the kind of resonant frequency, the kind of muddy sound of the kick. And then I'll see whether it needs any mids taken out in the high. So as you can hear at 142 Hertz, it's got that kind of nasty, kind of hollow sounds to the kick drum as I kind of sweeping through the frequencies there. This is a frequency that I'm going to then remove. So I'll just quickly pull the sound up and down so you can hear what we're looking out for here. So it's not a very nice sound indeed. So I'm just going to pull that down by a couple of dB. And that's sounding pretty nice. I'll just move that back up to reset to default and then put it back down so you can hear the difference. So it's quite strange that now that we've started to remove that frequency, once you put it back in, you can hear it clear as day. Whereas originally, when we first imported the kick, you couldn't really hear that frequency at all. It's quite kind of a little kind of secret frequency that kind of hides. But once you pull it out, you can really start to hear that it increases the low end of the kick. So it allows basically more room for this low end frequency to come through, as well as removing that kind of hollow, kind of nasty sounding frequency. So let's just compare the original to what we've just done with the EQ now. So really it's added a nice amount of low end and of course taken away that hollow kind of frequency. And just another dip in the mids just to help accentuate the kind of high and the low end a little bit more. Next up, we're going to be using the Mag EQ. And I'm simply going to add another notch on the 40 Hertz. This is just going to give a nice kind of more low end feel. I don't want to boost too much on this single EQ. At the moment, we're boosting by almost 5 decibels, so it's quite a lot. I don't want to boost anymore, so I'm going to use another EQ to kind of relieve the stress on this parametric EQ. And just this little notch is just going to help to boost the low a little bit more. It's just giving a little bit more weight on the low end. And finally, I've got one more compressor added. Again, it's the Vertigo VSC2. We'll play around with this. We might not actually need it. But what I'm looking for here is to just kind of tighten up the low end a little bit more and maybe add a tiny bit more attack. So we've increased the low end with our 2 EQs. And you might be thinking, well, why would you want to kind of reduce it? Again, well, I don't want to kind of reduce it as much as in terms of turning down the volume of the low end. I'm trying to kind of tighten up the frequencies. So any kind of frequencies which are a little bit loose on the super low end, I want to kind of tighten those up so they're a bit kind of tighter with the higher frequencies around 73 Hertz. So again, I'm going to pull it down the release as quick as possible, 0.1 seconds. Attack, probably try it at 3 milliseconds again. And instead of having a 4:1, I'm going to use a 2:1 ratio, which is a little bit softer. And I'll start bringing back on the threshold. So that's sounding quite nice, just kind of tightening up those low end frequencies. It kind of sounds like it gets a little bit tighter and a little bit fuller and even a little bit harder. It's got a little bit more punch to it, as well as the high end attack having a little bit more kind of cleanliness to it and a little bit more snap. So I'll just play the kick and flick off the effects and back on again so you can hear the before and after. So quite a substantial difference, but obviously it does sound very nice indeed. So this is one thing that I kind of think about when I'm looking for kicks. When I'm looking through my kick samples or using Kick 2, I'm trying to imagine what the kick will sounds like after the EQ and compression has been added onto it. You know, you could have a kick sample that doesn't sound great to begin with, but from my experience, I kind of know what sounds good and what doesn't sound good, and what you can make sound good and what you would struggle to make sound good. So we started off with quite a nice sample on the Mayo Levy pack, the preset, and then we've gone and improved that sound by generating the sample, played around with the envelopes to make it a little bit shorter and snappier, and then added some EQ and some compression to then further control the sound itself. So that's the kick that we're going to be using throughout the project. Make sure you tune in for the next episode when we'll be looking at the sub bass. Cheers.
Thanks everybody for watching, commenting and indeed liking. We really do appreciate all the support we get here on our Sonic Academy YouTube channel. So if you found this video super useful, please, we'd love you to hit the subscribe button. We update the YouTube channel every week with new content. And if you want to watch some more relevant content, just click on the videos beside me.